The Third Crusade, 1189 to 1192, also known as the Kings Crusade, was a response to the capture of Jerusalem by Saladin in 1187. Pope Gregory VIII quickly reacted and issued a call for a new crusade. This time, three European Christian kings, Frederick Barbarossa of the Holy Roman Empire, Philip II Augustus of France, and Richard the Lionheart of England, led the war. Route of advance. Frederick Barbarossa set off towards the Middle East with a large army, aiming for the city of Ovijid in Turkey. However, he drowned while crossing a river in Armenia just a few months later, causing his German forces to scatter. Meanwhile, Richard and Philip sailed to the Middle East. Siege of Acre and victory at Arsuf. Upon reaching the Middle East, Richard the Lionheart of England and Philip II Augustus of France began by laying siege to Acre, 1189 to 1191. This coastal city was on a vital route between Jerusalem and the northern coastal cities and was of great importance. After months of siege, Acre fell. Richard then moved his forces south, and on September 7, 1191, his forces met and defeated Saladin's forces at the Battle of Arsuf. Peace negotiations and the end of the Third Crusade. Following the Battle of Arsuf, Richard laid siege to Jaffa, but despite his victories, he never managed to retake Jerusalem. Ultimately, in 1192, he established a peace treaty with Saladin that allowed Christians to visit the holy sites in Jerusalem, but the city itself remained under Muslim control. After the peace established in the Third Crusade, Richard the Lionheart and the Crusader forces returned. However, this peace was only temporary and did not establish lasting peace. Despite this, the peace treaty brought some important achievements for Christians. Permission for Christians to walk to holy places. One of the key terms of the peace treaty was that Christians were allowed to travel to Jerusalem and visit their holy sites without disturbance. This was a great victory for Christians as they had been deprived of this opportunity. Retention of Crusader force. Although Jerusalem was under Muslim control, the Crusader forces still maintained control over some territories of the Crusader coastal cities. These cities served as important bases for Christians to maintain their presence in the Middle East. End of the war between Philip II and Richard. Another part of the agreement was the end of hostilities between Philip II Augustus of France and Richard the Lionheart of England. These two kings were heavily engaged with each other during the Third Crusade, and this tension was to Saladin's advantage. 4. Richard's return to England. After the end of the Third Crusade, Richard returned to England. However, on his return journey, he was captured by Leopold V, Duke of Austria. Richard was imprisoned in Austria and was captive until 1194. This issue caused new tensions in Europe that ultimately led to later crusades. Impacts of the Third Crusade. Unlike the two previous crusades, the Third Crusade resulted in the establishment of a peace treaty that preserved some Christian rights in Jerusalem and the Holy Land. However, this war did not lead to the complete return of Christian control over Jerusalem. Ultimately, like the others, this crusade failed to achieve its primary objectives, and this appears to have made the subsequent crusades less successful. The Fourth Crusade took place from 1202 to 1204 AD. Initially designed to reclaim the Holy Land from the Muslims, it ultimately resulted in the conquest of Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire. Preparation for war. The Fourth Crusade began with a call to arms by Pope Innocent III in 1198 AD. This call was met with widespread response, particularly from the French nobility. However, they needed a fleet to carry them from Europe to the Holy Land. Agreement with Venice. To solve this issue, the French negotiators made an agreement with the Doge of Venice, Enrico Dandolo, that the Venetians would provide a fleet to transport the Crusader forces. But when the Crusader forces gathered in Venice, their numbers were less than expected, and they couldn't afford the cost of the fleet. Change of course. In response to this crisis, Dandolo proposed that if the Crusader forces helped the Venetians to capture the city of Zadar, they could offset part of their debt. This proposal resulted in the Crusader forces changing their course from the Holy Land to Zadar. Capture of Zadar and Constantinople. Zadar was captured with little resistance by the Crusader forces in 1202. Afterwards, in 1203, the Crusaders attacked Constantinople, hoping that by capturing this city they could facilitate the return of Alexius IV, the son of the deposed Byzantine emperor, to the throne. However, this effort was unsuccessful. In 1204, the Crusaders attacked Constantinople again, and this time they successfully captured the city. This attack was extremely destructive, causing widespread damage in the city. As a result, the Latin Empire was established, and Byzantium was weakened for several decades to come. After capturing Constantinople, the Crusaders proceeded to divide the lands of the Byzantine Empire among themselves. Innocent III, despite his displeasure at the attack on a Christian city, which was contrary to the original Crusade conditions, recognized the new Latin Empire in accordance with existing political realities. The Latin Empire ruled for several decades, but it never fully controlled Byzantium. During this time, a Byzantine government was established in Nicaea and continued to strive to reclaim Constantinople. This effort finally succeeded in 1261, marking the return of the Byzantine Empire, although with less power and a smaller empire than before. Additionally, the Fourth Crusade had other profound and long-lasting effects. Specifically, this war caused a deep schism between the Eastern and Western churches, which generally continues to this day. This division had essentially begun in the 11th century AD, but the Crusaders' attack on Constantinople made this schism deeper and more profound. Overall, the Fourth Crusade is one of the most important chapters in modern European and Middle Eastern history. This war not only had profound effects on the Holy Land, but also on the Byzantine Empire and the relations between the Eastern and Western churches.